right, 3 easy steps. All right. The first step is, and then number two, the second step is kind of like what we kind of already touched on. It's like we identify. And then finally, once we do that and we start getting some green universal signs that people like us, people want to buy what we have to sell.
All right, so I'm here with Hannah. She's done over $945,000, but that was her first Etsy calendar year, and she's gonna let us know how she did that in 3 easy steps. But before she explains that, do you want to let us know who you are?
Sure. So, hi, thank you, first of all, Rich, for having me. I'm a fellow Etsy seller. I'm a YouTuber. I've been on Etsy for over 5 years. I'm still on Etsy. I still run a brand currently, but my first company was that one that I shared on YouTube. That video got like a bunch of views, and yeah, basically we did over 945,000 our first calendar year on the Etsy platform, and then that same year we did about 150,000 on the congruent Shopify brand for that same brand in that same year. And yeah, even though that was my first year on Etsy, that wasn't my first year as an entrepreneur. So I think that's something that I like to point out. It was also revenue, not profit, but that was actually the most profitable year we saw. It was like insane margins. And the 2 years before leading up to that, I was like in that school of hard knocks mode, just like trying to get into online business, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, how I was going to do it. And so I call that like my limbo years of like entrepreneurial, failures, lessons, whatever that, helped me build a bunch of identity capital and the skills necessary to basically see those numbers on Etsy when I finally, launched my store after I was like delaying for months and months. But yeah, a lot of lessons learned. It was crazy and cool to see that amount of revenue, but the real lessons came after that year, actually, like learning how to actually build a real business in the e-commerce space, whether on Etsy, Shopify, all the things. So yeah.
So that's awesome. But that's what I love about your channel too, because you have a lot of transparency. You've shown the numbers, you've shown the profits. So we'll get into that as well. So what year did you actually start? You said you were doing this before Etsy. You were trying to figure it out. What did you start off with?
So in like, I would say like back in like 2016, it was like coming to the end of college, and I basically studied like really like useless. And so I was like, I knew I was never going to get like a real job. Like I knew that I wanted to start a business. And so I got into like social media marketing, and I got into in this group with like all these entrepreneurs that were like, that was the thing to do at the time, was like do media buying for other people's companies. And so, yeah, I learned how to run like Facebook ads and Instagram ads and copywriting and how to make funnels and creatives and email marketing. So I like gained all these digital marketing skills. And that was like started 2 years before I like even discovered Etsy. And so I did a bunch of client work, realized that I hated agency life. And one of my clients had an Etsy store. And so I basically learned Etsy from the inside of this girl's shop because she was running a Shopify Etsy brand. And I just saw all this opportunity, and I saw how much room for growth there was that she wasn't capitalizing on. And, I tried to down a whole rabbit hole with her. Like I actually tried to buy her company at one point, and that whole thing blew up. And so then I was like, all right, I need to figure out something to sell. And so that's how I, started aligning myself with production partners. My shops are always handmade. I don't ever drop ship anything. I don't do print on demand. So I've always worked with like production partners, and we, get them to make our designs for us. And then that's kind of how the whole trajectory started. And that first brand started in 2019. So from like 2016, I kind of in that limbo, figuring it out, broke, depressed. And then by 2019, that's like when we really started seeing revenue.
Right. Okay, cool. I like that you mentioned Shopify, because a lot of viewers, they either do one or the two, and it sounds like you do both. So like, are you selling the same brand on both, like same products on both platforms, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's just it's like an extension of the brand. So yeah, it's the same brand, same product, just on two sales channels. But yeah, it's basically like running two completely, even though it's the same product, similar customer avatar, like it's two different business models. Like when you add in those second, third, fourth sales channels. But yeah, Shopify has been a very big, very, very big, very different engine than the Etsy engine. Let's just put it that way.
Gotcha. And then one last question before we hop into it. So it sounds like yours is more brand oriented. So are you one of those Etsy shops just like very brand focused on their products, like one particular niche, and you're not just selling everything?
Yeah, 100%. In the print on demand space, like you have that opportunity to kind of position yourself like more broad, chase more trends, right? But for the physical goods space, or at least, I was in fast fashion and now I'm in home decor. Yeah, it's very brand oriented, like cohesive brand vibe, attracting one specific type of customer avatar, sort of thing for sure.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk about it. So $945,000 in 3 easy steps. I know you've done like a few million now because like this is an older video, but
Yeah.
that's a nice title. So we'll just stick with it. So I'll give the camera, the mic, whatever to you. So no.
All right, 3 easy steps. All right. The first step is understanding the niche that you're going into, right? So before we spend a bunch of time, money, energy, or potentially waste money, time, and energy, we want to understand the market that we're about to enter. So if you're going into the print on demand space, or you're going into the digital download space, or you're going into home decor or the gift basket space, whatever niche angle you're going to dive into, you want to understand your competitors. And like, that's really where you start. And so why do we want to start there? We want to start there because it sets the standard to what level we have to compete in the marketplace. And so a lot of times, like as entrepreneurs, like we come up with like these ideas or these designs, and we're only one data sample of a piece of data that says, oh, this is good or this is bad. And we actually don't really know what is good or is bad because we're only one data sample. And so what we need to do is we need to go validate that what we want to sell, people even want what we have to sell, or the idea of what we have to sell. And it's not going to be a 100% validated, but we're going to look for KPIs, key performance indicators, that would give us some confidence that says, before I spend a bunch of time, money, and energy on this thing or this product idea, this brand idea, people actually want to buy what I have to sell. So what I do is basically go into like, you know, if I'm looking to sell gift boxes, right? Like spa boxes, Mother's Day boxes, whatever, right? Let's go look at the people that are relatively young and pushing a good amount of sales in a short amount of time. And let's go see what they're doing. What does their images look like? What does their value proposition look like? What is their price point? What are their variation options, right? And then we can start getting an idea as to what level we actually have to compete with these people. Because on Etsy specifically, right, Shopify is a little bit of a different game, but on Etsy specifically, you know, whether you know it or not, you're competing for the clicks and purchases compared to everyone else. So if you're not competing, then you're not going to earn the click, you're not going to get the sale. So that's really step number one, is defining what's the niche and who am I competing against. And sometimes people get this really wrong, because when I say, go show me who your competition is, they'll show me a shop that's 10 years old and actually not even their competition. Who is your competition? Your competition is the person that's attracting the same exact customer avatar as you. Like, you're competing for the same sale. That's who you're, so like if you're in jewelry space, right? If you're selling fast fashion jewelry and you come back with a shop that is selling solid gold jewelry, that is not your competition. Yeah, you're both selling jewelry, but you're not competing for the same customer avatar. So we want to look at shops that are young, pushing good amount of sales volume, right? That is actually attracting the same customer as you. So we need to go figure out what that is. That's really the foundation of like what we have to do before we even start a business, if that makes sense. Are you following me?
I'm following you.
All right. And then number two, the second step is kind of like what we kind of already touched on. It's like we identify, okay, this is the standard of what we have to compete, right? These are the price points. These are, you know, the levels of creative marketing in terms of imagery, right? The second thing is then deciding for us, what is our unique value proposition? And are we going to meet, and are we going to be, or how are we going to meet or beat, you know, our top 5 favorite competitors? And remember, those competitors, young shops pushing good sales volume in a short amount of time, right? So now we analyze, you know, our top 5 competition that we like. And now we have to say, okay, well, what can we do? What products do we need to source? What production partners do we have to find? What unique value proposition are we going to bring to the table that's going to at least meet or beat the standard of what the market's saying? And this manifests into the imagery, right? So like a lot of times, you know, what people do is they'll go and they'll look at, you know, shirts online, and the mock-up's kind of bad, and, you know, but for whatever reason, it has a 20 added cart badge and a bestseller badge, and they'll make that a standard of, oh, well, this person, their image kind of sucks and it's not really great or whatever, but then they make that a standard and they go and just meet them there instead of improving upon what's already there, if that makes sense, right? So use a more clear mock-up, add a video, do more storytelling, right? Like when you see people that are not, when you're doing competitor analysis and you're looking at your market, if you see that someone's actually doing really well in a space, doing well in terms of it has added carts, it's got a lot of reviews on it, a lot of people sending videos or images of their reviews, right? And then you look at the listing and you're like, oh, well, this is actually not that good, you know, because their listing isn't really optimized really well. That's not a standard, that's an opportunity, and make it more competitive, right? And so what we want to do is identify how we're going to compete. So like I said, imagery is one really good way to compete, having more variation, making a cheaper price on the front end with a cheaper variation option. That's another way to compete. compete, more storytelling, right? Like if your competitors are all just like flipping stuff from China and you're actually like hand making or hand personalizing or hand designing something, right? Tell me that story. Show that in your images. Show that in a video of you like waving to the camera, sitting at your computer, designing something or sewing on the personalization, right? That is an increased value, perceived value proposition if you're actually touching the product nowadays, right? So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways to compete, but those are just like a few, and you want to figure out how you're going to meet or beat that in the space. And then finally, once we do that and we start getting some green universal signs that people like us, people want to buy what we have to sell, that then usually gives us the confidence to then go and start to scale. And so scaling comes in a couple different manifestations, I guess, right? So scaling for me, and probably the core reason of why my shop, being at the time and still is one of the most competitive spaces that there is on Etsy, which is fast fashion, right? The real key to like me hitting virality, I guess you can say, was Etsy ads and spending money on ads more aggressively than it probably at a time when a lot of people weren't or didn't understand Etsy ads. And the reason I was so aggressive and so comfortable with spending money on ads is because I was coming from platforms where it was way more expensive to acquire customers through ads. And it was way more difficult, you know, when you're running ads on Meta, even Amazon PPC, right? TikTok, YouTube, right? The amount of given variables that you're testing and playing with versus like an Etsy ad is like, you're talking like first grade versus like college, like the difficulty level, you know? So I came in, looked all Etsy ads and I was like, whoa, this is like, there's two variables. You're split testing an image and turning things on and off. And that's it. Like, that's it. That's all you have to do. And so for the most part, when people criticize Etsy ads, it's because it's really uncomfortable they already don't know their numbers, the makeup of their business in terms of their metrics and their net profit percentages before ads. So like the idea of giving up more money to marketing is really uncomfortable because they visually can't see what's happening and they don't know what the KPIs are in which they need to turn things off because they don't know these profit breakdowns. And so, yeah, I mean, the moral of the story is Etsy ads do a lot of things for your business. Not only does it make you scale faster, it puts a moat around your business. It makes it more competitive as a whole when competition does arise, right? Like who's Etsy going to favor in the long term? If you're selling a very similar product at a very similar price point with a very similar value proposition, long term, are they going to favor you or are they going to favor the guy that's saying, I've been investing in the platform for the last 3 years and you haven't? You know what I mean? So
Right.
You just have to think in terms of what does the platform want and look at the holistic, bigger picture of what ads do to you. But even with that said, it's not just about turning ads on and then wasting money or just to turn them on because Hannah said to turn them on, right? Like if done correctly, Etsy ads should not only increase your revenue, but it should increase your profit. And if they're not increasing your profit, that means that you're not optimizing them right, or it means that you haven't built a product catalog that makes sense with Etsy ads. And that means then that we need to focus on product opportunities that do make sense with ads on and do increase your profit. So yeah, I would say those are the 3 steps in a long drawn out 20-minute explanation.
I love it. I love it. No, that was really detailed, a lot of value. But then you get really transparent on your channel. So you made that video. That video went viral.
Yeah.
And then you also did a breakdown with the profits. What was that looking like?
Yeah, so it was wild because the internet loves to see $1 million bajillion dollars, and then I post a follow-up video 2 seconds later about the profit, and that video got like 10,000 views. So yeah, that first year, our profit margin percentage after marketing was about 35%, which is insane, right? Like I usually for physical goods space, like I shoot for over 20% now, like when I look at the big picture, you know, for me. And profit margins, by the way, are contingent on your business and what you want. You set these thresholds for your business. For us, it's not worth it for the headache for us to make our products the way that we develop our products. It's not worth it for us if we're not at least clearing 20%. But in print on demand, when you don't touch the product, you know, making a 15 to 20%, even like a 12 to 20% is a good return on money for never touching a product. You know what I mean? But like I said, profit margins are something that you decide what you want to see for your business. And also it's based off the products that do make you the most profit. That then becomes the standard of like, okay, let's keep working towards developing these types of products that are making us the most money and adding things into the filtration system that yield that type of outcome. You know what I mean? And staying away from product opportunities that are not giving us the same return, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Love that. So, and then I heard you were talking about something about, you know, the ads and like like you can't really see, what you're making back accurately. But then you're giving me some, behind the scenes information about like what you got going on with the profit tree and something
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah. So I spent the last 2 years developing this tool called Profit Tree, and it really came out of this first brand because, we did all of this, we were doing all this revenue and there was no way for me to actually know my real-time profit. And even at the time, my bookkeeper I was using completely did my books wrong, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know what they were doing. But essentially, the big issue with Etsy sellers is they don't actually have a visual day-to-day of what's happening with their profit and their profit breakdowns. And that also contributes to why people are so scared to run ads, because they don't know what pie is left over to spend in marketing. And so by the very nature, they're just kind of avoiding it altogether, or just like spending money and kind of wasting money because they don't know the makeup of the profit of each product that they're selling. So I went out on this venture for the last 2 years to try to figure out how to solve this for print on demand sellers and physical goods sellers. And what has manifested is a tool called Profit Tree, which is the first ever automated profit tracking solution for sellers. And essentially, yeah, that's what we developed. And currently, Profit Tree shows you your real-time profit. It shows you holistic, metrics like your marketing cost percentage, your cost of goods sold, so your product cost percentages, so you can trail and see like the holistic health of your shop. But also we have something else coming out. It's a Chrome extension where basically we're going to give you all of the metrics you need in one page to optimize your Etsy ads. So I don't know if you know this, well, you know this, but the audience right now inside of your Etsy marketing tab, when you are trying to optimize your Etsy ads, Etsy actually doesn't give you one data point that you actually need to be able to make a decision on whether an ad should be on or off. You have to do all the calculations outside of Etsy because Etsy's reporting system doesn't show you anything that you need except for the spend. The only thing they do show you is spend. But the way that they're showing you ROAS, the way they're showing you revenue, actually it's useless the way that they're actually calculating it. And so we're developing a tool. Profit Tree almost kind of does it for you right now, but with this Chrome extension, it's going to show you every single thing that you need in order to make a decision on whether or not you should turn an ad on or off. And essentially what you need is you need your net profit percentage after marketing on a listing level. And you can't do that unless you manually calculate it on the back end. And you also need your ROAS compared to top line revenue. So right now the ROAS that it's showing you is ROAS compared to what the ad generated you. And that's actually worthless because that revenue column is also showing you revenue made from the click if they bought other things in your store. So it's not showing you the performance of the listing. And so what you need is the return on spend compared to top line sales with organic sales and sales included from the ads. And that's another thing that I think people miss with ads is they forget that ads are contributing to your organic SEO of a listing. And so that's why we have to look at top line. We don't want to just look at what it spent versus what the ad made us. I mean, you can, but it's not a correct way. Like anyone that does high level PPC on Amazon always looks at spend compared to top line revenue because it's contributing to your rank organically as well, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm not losing it.
I was gonna ask you about that too because that's huge. Because inside of my program, we teach people how to look at the stats on like what it actually brought them compared to just like the ads. So I was gonna ask you like if you ran ads just to be profitable from that single thing. But yeah, that's a game changer. So I can't wait till I get to use that or get to see that.
Wait, but what did you say? How do you tell people to look at like spend versus top line, or what did you say? How you teach?
Yeah, from the full revenue that's actually generating
Okay.
on
Yep.
the listing.
And then pulling out those percentages. Yeah. I mean, everyone has their own theory, but I think we're on par. I mean, even when you're running ads in Meta or anything, like you always want to look at the bigger picture of what's happening and how, even like the attribution of an ad is only 30 days. So like someone can click on the ad, but they can buy 3 months from now, you know what I mean? That attribution is not being contributed to that revenue column. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, on par with everything.
Love that. Love that. So Hannah, where can people follow you? What else do you have going on? Where can people watch you?
Yes. Ecom Hannah is my YouTube channel. Profittree.io is our website. Yeah, so any of those places. My Instagram is Ecom Hannah as well. But
Awesome. So appreciate everyone for watching. Make sure you guys follow Hannah and we'll see you on the next one.
bye, guys.